I thought a worthwhile conversation I should have with Cody this morning. And let's not forget that Cody is 7 years younger than my daughter. So this always shows me how old I am. Is we're gonna have a conversation about what has happened in our life and how have we thought about money. Have the way we treated or thought about money changed as we've gotten older? Some of us much older than the others. But I'd love to hear, Cody, from you at 25 years old. What have been your thoughts about money as you've been a young adult? What do you think?
Well, I was thinking about it this morning. I'm glad we're talking about it because right now I'm at a point in my business where I don't have a ton of extra capital. And I think back to when I was 18, 19, and I had $3,000 saved up, which is less than I had today, but I was not worried about losing it then. And then I started to grow, and then I was like, oh no, what if I lose it? And now I'm at the point where like, okay, it's just a tool. So the way I'm looking at money is that it is only to be used to improve the communities you're in, whether that's building a program, building something that wasn't there before. And the biggest surprise to me is that I'm not stressed anymore about not having any money in the bank because I know exactly where it needs to go. And that is a shift from when I was starting. When I was starting, I really wanted a ton of money in the bank, but I know exactly where it needs to go. And that necessity of it has to go here, 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 and here alleviates a lot of stress in my world. I don't know about you.
Yeah, it's kind of funny because, again, I've got more than 30 years on you, so I have a little bit more experience. I went through a time. It's funny. If you were to ask me, when did I feel the richest? I would actually tell you I was 15 or 16 years old. So I was living at home. Thankfully, my parents, shelter, food, all of that. So I had no liabilities, really no expenses. I was working as a commission salesperson at Sears, and I made about 20 grand working 30 hours a week, right? Working evenings and weekends.
Yeah.
And I got to tell you, being 16-year-old with 30 grand coming in, you had every single toy you ever wanted and then some. You went on every single date you wanted to and then some. And that's when I felt like money was plentiful. But to your point, at that point in my life, money was only earned to spend. I didn't have I wasn't an investor. Shoot, I wasn't a saver yet. Yes, I had a savings account, but that was just because I didn't have a checking account, right? I was 16 years old. All I had was a savings account. So there's that. Then people may not know this unless they're really an OG. I got married at 19, right? So I was barely 19 years old when I was married. And money then became a limiting factor, right? I went from living at home to being married and going to college, or at least junior college, and struggling to kind of create a life, right? Because I wasn't yet graduated. I was probably making, I don't know, 25 grand, not much more than I was when I was 16. And money was a limiting factor to fun. So then I go forward, I graduate, I get my first big boy job, right? 40 hours a week, Monday through Friday. And I suddenly feel like I'm a baller. And I still remember one of the dumbest financial things I ever did. I think I made 40 grand gross, and I bought a $50,000 car because I could afford it. So that was really stupid.
Afford it, right?
In quote, I could afford it. It was a stupid financial move that I suffered through for years to come. So there was that. Then, God, man, I've had so many money episodes. Then I was 29, and I successfully turned 7 grand in savings into almost 200 grand. I remember, Cody, saying I was smarter than Warren Buffett. Like, if you ever say that, slap yourself, because you're not. And I remember that feeling. I was on living. I mean, $200,000. You guys got to remember, this was 2000, so 25 years ago, maybe 2001, and it, I don't know what that is today. Probably 350 grand, whatever it is. But that's more money than anybody in my family had ever touched. My parents are high school graduates. military folks, never made a lot of money. Nobody in my family ever had any money. I'm sure at that time, 200 grand, I don't know, I'm 25, 26, something like that. It's like I'm living on top of the world, right? Money, the world is my oyster. I figured out the matrix, and boy, was I wrong. I lost 80% of it in like 3 weeks. That was a eye-opening affair where I got really depressed and really down on oneself because, losing over 150 grand, which is more money than anybody in your life had ever seen, was really heartbreaking. But as I said, I think in one of our other episodes, that turned me on to real estate. And real estate for me was something you could learn. It was more slower moving. You can create value. And as I have learned subsequently, inflation's a feature, not a bug. Right? As long as you can own assets and own them for a long time, your opportunity to get wealthy is easy. Right? You're only 25, dude. When you're 30, you just do nothing else than what you've already done. You're going to be a multi-millionaire, maybe even a decamillionaire in 5 years. It's just how math works. And
I've done some of the numbers. It's something to look forward to.
It's crazy. I mean, and then if you fast forward to doing it, you're my age. I mean, I can only imagine where you'll be. It's like, oh my goodness, crazy. Worth $100 million or something stupid. So again, inflation's a feature, not a bug. You got to appreciate that. And then lastly, kind of to your point on cash, cash went from being to buy stuff to a limiting factor to invest to something I really don't think about anymore is where cash is now. Because I think you're right. It's to be deployed, right? I think you used this phrase earlier, cash is a tool. And I think that's absolutely right. It could be a tool to create enjoyment, to give away, to donate, to buy assets, to, all of those things. So, I guess I've had lots of cash life cycles in my life.
Having gone through all those, how in the beginning did you respect or not respect money, and how has that changed? Because I view respect as how much you're using it towards its actual potential. Like if you're working a relationship, you really respect someone, you're really putting a lot into it. You're trying to max out the potential of that relationship. There's a lot of respect there with a friend, with a spouse. Well, with money, a lot of people waste it in the beginning. And sure, they come out with some memories, but what are your thoughts on that?
I would tell you, if I'm being 100% honest, I feared money. Right? Money had a negative connotation. And again, I'm sure this is terrible baggage I take from my childhood, where if you had money, dad was happy. And if we didn't have money, dad was upset. And he was upset a lot. And so I carry that baggage still. So I would say money was fearful. Like when I got married at 19 and money suddenly became this gating factor to enjoying life, that was out of fear. I would say I came to have a respect for money, frankly, once I lost it. I think that was a big change in my life. When you go from $200,000 thinking you're the boss to losing 80% and realizing you're a fool, I think that's when I respected money. And I really had to sit back and acknowledge what I did and I didn't do. The story of the 200 grand is probably the oldest story told. I started actually doing the work. I would go to a library. I would find a sector. I would read financial statements, right? I have an MBA in accounting and econ guy, so I can read financials. And I would make bets, well-educated, well-informed decisions. And that worked. And then what happened over time is I did less work, and it still worked. By the end of this crazy cycle, and probably the last 50 or 60 grand, I was simply picking random stocks and winning, right? I think I literally had the Midas touch, but then you lose it all. And that moment walking through Borders bookstore at 30 years old, feeling like a complete failure, to your point, was probably the first time I respected money, because it can come and it can go. And that was a very eye-opening moment for me. I've said it before, and I'm sure I'll say it again. I'm glad it happened. I would not be talking to you today if that traumatic loss did not happen. I would probably still be a stock guy and a stock guy only. So I'm glad it happened. I'm glad I realized that stocks, at least for me, being an emotional, non-disciplined trader, is a casino. And I'm not a part of the cool kids club, so I'm not invited. So I think the loss actually is when the first time in my life I respected money like you do it again at 25, which is wild how many years or decades you're ahead of most.
Well, hopefully people can learn that respect from watching and hearing these stories. Because I learned the respect of money from the people that are now my mentors. Some of them are business partners, and it's just cold call, found them. And you can learn a lot from stories as long as you study it and understand why it played out the way it did. You mentioned a car being a painful experience for you. That is something you can do with money. For those who are, I'd say, in the first couple phases, they're maybe the zero net worth to million. They got a rental or two, or maybe they're working on their first one. For something for them to look forward to, what are the top two things you've ever done or most memorable things you've ever done with money?
So I bought my dream car. I literally bought my dream car. I was 19, married. One of my jobs at the time was working at a car stereo store, full commission. A dentist, I think he was 28 or 29, rolled in and threw $10,000 in cash on the table and said, I want everything in that car outside. And I'm like, first off, I'd never seen 10 grand in cash, like $100 bills. And then we go outside and he's driving a black Mercedes SL 500 at the time, two-door. I think it was a V8 hardtop convertible. That had been my dream car forever. So that was probably 1991, 1992, dream car. In 2015, long after I could afford it, long after I could buy it cash 10 times over, I bought my dream car. And when I say dream car, I literally had dreams about it. Literally would dream about it. It was the car that, if I'm honest with you, Cody, I honestly at 19 years old never thought I would own it. Right? I wasn't going to be a dentist or a doctor or a lawyer. I was never going to have one of those jobs. Again, I'm a 19-year-old kid going to junior college who's freaking married all of a sudden. So this aspiration was something I never thought was possible. But I have to tell you, the day I bought that car was one of the best days of my life. And that car is sitting probably 50 feet from where I am right now. I drive it every day. I have 107,000 miles on that car, and I still smile every time I get in. So have a dream car, but just make sure you get it when you're at the end of the race, not the beginning of the race. So that's number one. And then number two, man, there's so many things. Paid for my daughter's college, bought this crazy second-ass home. I do 6-star vacations anytime I want. I've done tremendous charity, some known, some unknown. I remember one time a buddy of mine had a family member pass away and they couldn't afford the funeral. So they were doing a GoFundMe and it was like $5,000. And I just covered it, without I never let them know I did that. And just so the family could mourn and get on with it. So there's lots of things you could do when you get there. But it takes a decade to get wealthy. I didn't buy my dream car until 15 years after starting. And I'm glad I waited 15 years. Could I done it at year 12? Probably. But I think 15 years was the right number. It was unquestionably, it was a nit on my financial statement. I mean, the car, I could have burned the money and nothing would have happened. So waiting till it's time and then driving it every day, highly recommended.
I'm grateful that you shared those points because I'm almost 6 years into my journey, and it is a slog. I mean, even going as fast as I did, it's hard. And there's a lot of people that watch this that are recognizing it's hard, and being able to hear that it does get better is great. And a key takeaway I got is one of the most painful experiences you had was also one of the most freeing, just based upon the time you did it.
Correct. No question.
Setting things up first is well worth it. I've got some buddies that are out buying Lambos and they're trying to trade up and get nicer and nicer cars, and they're never getting ahead.
No, you're. If you've ever played the game Cash Flow, the board game, it starts with this little wheel, and these buddies of yours who are buying Lambos and trading up, all they're doing is making the wheel bigger. And if you know anything about physics, the bigger the wheel, the harder you have to push. That's all they're doing. They're extending the time, they're extending the exertion. And oh, by the way, here's a real hard fact for your buddies. They're increasing the odds that they die in the rat race. How sad is that? They die on this stupid hamster wheel. It's
When
crazy.
you put it like that, yeah, it is what it is, though.
Yeah,
So,
that's right. You just smile at them. And, well, I mean, I don't know if you've heard this story, but one of the hardest days of my life came about 12 years into my journey. And as you know, our journey was 15 years. So right at the tail end. But I didn't know it was the tail end, right? At 12 years, I was still like, I don't know how long this is going to take. I went to a housewarming party. If somebody that worked for me in the organization, so he was a direct report of mine, so I'm higher in the organization. And theoretically, you're higher in the organization, you should have nicer stuff. That's what people think, right? Your boss
Sure.
should have nicer stuff than you. But we went to this housewarming party. He had a house. I had a condo, so he's ahead. He was in the number 1 school district. I was in the number 3 school district. He had a 2,500 square foot home. I had a 1,300 square foot 3-story box. His was 1 story. He had a backyard. I didn't. You guys get the story. I remember driving home from that. And the only time I can remember in my life I had to pull over because I was crying. I was crying because I was 12 years into this slog, into this journey, and I didn't know if it was going to pay off. I was legitimately having concerns at 12 freaking years into the journey about, did we make a mistake? Think about that. And Olivia had to drive us home. And I think about that all the time because 3 years later, we were there. It was over, right? And it's just funny how your mind can play tricks on you because you're absolutely right. I have a saying, you've heard it, the first 5 years suck. That doesn't mean the next 5 years are easy. It just means they suck less. You're better. You know more. You're not making as many mistakes. It's still work. It's still not fun. But by year 10, by year 15, it's worth it. And if I could be one living example of that, I'm going to continue to do that. So realize, Cody, that you're not unusual. I had one of those days at year 12. You'll undoubtedly have more days in the future, but just know it's worth it.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. And I look back on the mistakes I made. I was like, if only I knew. But the thing is, if I knew all the things I know today, it would take me about 7 to 8 years to hit it, rather than, okay, I'm probably going to be free of all painful obligations by year 9 or 10.
Exactly.
It's still going to take a decade.
It takes a
decade. I don't have a job. I live off the properties, but there's still obligations I have to overcome. It takes a decade for everybody.
No, it does. It just does. Again, folks, the wealth formula is very easy. Create disposable income. Grow it at all costs. Become elite at something. And then do it for a decade. It is that freaking simple. Cody, where can people find you?
Cody Davis Business Adventures on YouTube, growing a little bit every week.
There you go, folks. Do me a favor. Go give him a follow. What is it one more time, Cody? What?
Cody Davis Business Adventures.
I
Pretty
love that.
simple.
Cody Davis Business Adventures. You're the man. Take care. Later.
All right, you too. Bye.